The entire ballroom fell silent when the young woman walked straight toward the billionaire in the wheelchair. No one knew her name. She wasn't wearing designer jewelry. She wasn't part of the wealthy circle filling the Grand Harbor Hotel that night. Just a single mother sitting at the last table with her 6-year-old son. But she did something no one else dared to do. She stopped in front of Ryan Holloway, the once powerful CEO whose life had collapsed after a devastating accident, leaned slightly closer and said the words that shocked the entire room. "Would you like to be my date tonight?" people whispered. Some laughed. Others waited for the awkward moment that would surely follow. But what happened next, no one expected. Within minutes, the loneliest man in the room was in the center of the dance floor, laughing for the first time in 2 years, and that single decision would change 3 lives forever. The Grand Harbor Hotel in downtown Chicago glittered like a palace that night. Crystal chandeliers spilled golden light across the ballroom. Laughter floated through the air. The orchestra played a lively swing, and couples spun across the polished floor as if the world had never known sadness. It was the kind of wedding people would remember for years. But at the edge of the celebration, there was one man no one danced with: Ryan Holloway. 2 years ago, his name had been everywhere: business magazines, finance networks, investment forums. At just 34, Ryan was the brilliant founder of Holloway Ridge Capital, the youngest CEO to land on the cover of Fortune and Bloomberg in the same year. A man who once rode thoroughbred horses at charity galas. A man who once commanded billion-dollar deals with a single sentence. A man people used to follow. Tonight, he sat alone in a wheelchair. The polished chrome of the chair reflected the ballroom lights like quiet mockery. Ryan's tuxedo was perfect. Black silk lapels. Impeccable tailoring. His posture was still straight, proud even. But the confidence that once made boardrooms fall silent had faded into something colder. Distance. His steel gray eyes moved across the room without really seeing anyone. 2 years earlier, a car accident on Lakeshore Drive had shattered more than bones. It shattered the life he knew. The doctors said the damage to his spine was severe. Walking again unlikely. His fiancée, Vanessa Cole, had held his hand in the hospital for exactly 3 days. On the 4th, she whispered through tears, "I'm sorry, Ryan. I can't live like this." The engagement ring he planned to give her never left the velvet box. Friends visited less. Business partners became careful. And eventually, the world that once revolved around him simply moved on. Ryan lifted the glass of champagne beside him, but didn't drink. Across the ballroom, laughter erupted as the bride Rachel Bennett twirled into her husband's arms. People clapped. Someone shouted for another dance. Ryan leaned back slightly in his chair, watching like a spectator behind invisible glass. He had once been the man people wanted at the center of every celebration. Now he was the man everyone politely avoided, not out of cruelty, but discomfort. The orchestra shifted to a slow romantic melody. Couples moved closer together. Even elderly guests shuffled onto the dance floor, smiling as if time had never touched them. Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. Love. That word used to feel natural. Now it felt like a language he had forgotten how to speak. He exhaled slowly. "Wrong place for a broken man," he murmured to himself. Then something unexpected cut through the polished atmosphere. Laughter. Not the polite, rehearsed laughter of wealthy guests. Real laughter. Bright. Unfiltered. Ryan's eyes drifted toward the far corner of the ballroom. At the very last table, the one closest to the exit doors, sat a young woman in a simple navy dress. Her hair was loosely tied back, a few strands falling around her face. No expensive jewelry, no glamorous makeup, just warmth. Beside her sat a small boy, maybe 6 years old, wearing a tiny suit that looked slightly too big for him. The boy had placed a napkin on his head like a superhero cape. He stood on his chair dramatically. "I will protect the wedding cake from evil villains," he announced. The woman burst into laughter. Not embarrassed, not apologetic, just delighted. "Agent Noah," she said, playing along. "Your mission is to sit down before you fall." Ryan blinked. The sound of their laughter somehow softened the noise of the entire ballroom. He hadn't realized how long he had been staring. Then suddenly the boy pointed directly at him. "Mom," the child whispered loudly. Ryan froze. "That guy has the coolest chair ever." Several nearby guests turned their heads. Ryan's muscles tightened. He knew this moment. The whispers, the pity, the awkward glances. But something strange happened. The boy's eyes weren't filled with sympathy. They were shining with admiration. The woman followed her son's gaze. For a split second, her eyes met Ryan's. Warm brown eyes, clear, unafraid. Instead of quickly looking away like everyone else, She smiled, a small, genuine smile. Then she gently pulled the boy's hand down. "No pointing, Noah," she whispered softly. But she didn't break eye contact with Ryan. And in that brief moment, something shifted inside him. Not much, just enough to feel unfamiliar. Like a locked door inside his chest had creaked open an inch. A few minutes later, the master of ceremonies announced another dance. The ballroom erupted in applause. Music swelled, but Ryan remained where he was. Still, silent, invisible again. At the last table, the boy leaned toward his mother. "Mom?" Noah whispered, "Yeah, that man looks lonely." The woman glanced across the room again. This time she noticed more. The untouched champagne, the empty chairs around him, the way people walked past his table but never stopped. She recognized that look, the look of someone who didn't belong in the room anymore, because she had worn that same look herself once. 6 years earlier, standing alone behind a church curtain in a borrowed wedding dress, 8 months pregnant, while the groom walked away. Life had a strange sense of humor. Now here she was at another wedding, still sitting at the last table, still the outsider. She sighed softly. "Sometimes people just feel that way at parties," she told Noah. The boy frowned thoughtfully. Then he said something that made her blink. "But Mom, dancing doesn't need legs." She turned to him. "What do you mean you just need someone who wants to dance with you?" For a moment, the noise of the ballroom faded. The thought struck her like a spark. Across the room, Ryan Holloway sat watching life happen without him. A billionaire, a fallen legend, a man the entire room was too uncomfortable to approach. She wasn't usually reckless, but she had always been a little bold, and sometimes boldness changed lives. The woman stood up. "Mom," Noah asked. She smoothed her dress. Her heart began beating faster. "What are you doing?" he whispered excitedly. She took a deep breath. "Well," she said with a crooked smile, "one crazy decision tonight won't kill me." Then she started walking across the ballroom. Guests began noticing. A few whispered, "Who was she? Why was the girl from the last table heading toward Ryan Holloway?" Ryan noticed her when she was halfway there. He straightened slightly. Confusion crossed his face. People had approached him before, but usually for one reason: pity, or charity, or awkward small talk. But this woman walked with something different: confidence. When she reached him, she leaned forward slightly, close enough for only him to hear. Her voice was soft, but steady. "Hi," she said. Ryan studied her cautiously. "Hello," she smiled. "My name is Megan Parker." Ryan nodded politely. Then she said something that made the entire night tilt off its axis. "Would you like to be my date tonight?" The ballroom seemed to fall silent. Ryan stared at her. He searched her eyes carefully, looking for the thing he hated most: pity. But he didn't find it. Instead, he saw something unexpected: mischief, hope, and a challenge. His voice came out rough. "You're joking." She tilted her head. "Maybe." Then she added with a playful shrug, "But if you say no, you'll ruin the best entrance I've had all night." Ryan blinked, and suddenly, for the first time in months, he laughed. A real laugh. Not polite, not forced, real. Guests across the room began whispering. Did Ryan Holloway just laugh? Megan stepped behind his wheelchair. Her hands rested lightly on the handles. "Well, Mr. Holloway," she said, "shall we make this party interesting?" Ryan felt something strange stirring inside his chest, something he thought had disappeared forever. Curiosity, hope, and maybe the beginning of something dangerous. He looked up at her, then toward the dance floor, then back at her again. "All right, Megan Parker," he said quietly. "Let's see what happens." And with that, the woman from the last table wheeled the loneliest man in the room straight into the center of the dance floor. No one in that ballroom could have guessed what would happen next, but one thing was certain: that single moment was about to change 3 lives forever. Now, I want to ask you something. If you were at that wedding, what would you have done? Would you have had the courage to walk across the room like Megan did? Or would you have stayed at your table like everyone else? And tell me honestly, do you think Ryan accepted her invitation because he was curious? Or because a part of him desperately needed someone to see him again? And one more question. What do you think is about to happen on that dance floor? For a moment, no one in the Grand Harbor Hotel ballroom seemed to breathe. Ryan Holloway, the man who had once dominated financial headlines on both sides of the Atlantic, was being pushed onto the dance floor by a woman almost no one recognized. Whispers rippled across the room. Is that Ryan Holloway? Who's the girl? Is she serious? Some guests leaned closer to see better. Others exchanged amused looks, assuming the moment would become awkward within seconds. Ryan heard none of it clearly. His heartbeat had suddenly grown louder than the orchestra. Megan Parker guided his wheelchair into the golden circle of light at the center of the dance floor. The polished floor reflected the chandeliers above them like liquid glass. She stopped the chair. Ryan glanced around. Every eye in the room was on them. His jaw tightened slightly. "You know," he said quietly, "this is the exact situation I've spent 2 years trying to avoid." Megan leaned closer so only he could hear. Being stared at, being pitied. Her eyes softened, but her smile didn't disappear. "Well," she said lightly, "good news." "What?" "They're not pitying you," Ryan raised an eyebrow. "They're trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing." He almost laughed again. Almost. The music changed. The orchestra slipped into a slower rhythm, a smooth jazz melody drifting through the ballroom. Megan gently turned the wheelchair toward the center. "All right," she said. "Now what?" Ryan gestured to his chair. "You're the dance expert." "I never said that. You dragged me out here." "Fair point." For a second, she studied the chair thoughtfully. Then something mischievous lit up in her eyes. "Oh," she whispered, "this could actually work." Ryan narrowed his eyes. "That sentence worries me." But before he could protest, Megan suddenly spun the wheelchair. Not violently, gracefully. The chair rolled in a smooth circle as her navy dress flared slightly around her legs. The crowd gasped. Ryan grabbed the armrest instinctively. "Are you trying to turn me into a race car?" "No," Megan said, laughing. "You're my dance partner." She pushed the chair forward, then pulled it back. Another spin. And suddenly something strange happened. Ryan realized he wasn't just sitting there. He was part of the dance. The rhythm of the music matched the motion of the wheels. Megan moved around him effortlessly, guiding the chair like it had always belonged on the floor. For 2 years, Ryan had watched life from the sidelines. Now he was inside it. Applause began to rise from the crowd, tentatively at first, then louder. People weren't whispering anymore. They were cheering. Megan leaned close again. "See," she said softly, "you can dance." Ryan shook his head in disbelief. "This is ridiculous." "And yet," she said, spinning him again, "you're smiling." He hadn't even noticed. But she was right. Across the ballroom, several guests had pulled out their phones. The scene was too unusual, too joyful. A billionaire in a wheelchair laughing on the dance floor. A stranger guiding him like this had always been the plan. And then a small voice shouted across the room, "Mom." Ryan turned. Noah Parker burst onto the dance floor like a tiny rocket, the napkin cape from earlier still flapped behind him. Mr. Noah said breathlessly, "I want to dance too." Megan groaned playfully. "Oh no," Ryan chuckled. "And what exactly do you plan to do, partner?" Noah marched behind the wheelchair and grabbed the handles beside Megan. "I'll help drive." The entire ballroom erupted in laughter. Megan looked at Ryan with mock seriousness. "Well, Mr. Holloway, looks like we've got a co-pilot." Ryan felt a laugh escape him again, this one deeper, stronger. "All right, kid," he said, "let's see what you've got." The music picked up energy, and suddenly the dance floor turned into something unforgettable. Megan guided the chair. Noah pushed with dramatic vroom sound effects. Ryan leaned slightly with the motion playing along despite himself. Guests clapped to the rhythm. Children cheered. Even the bride and groom had stopped dancing to watch. But something more powerful was happening beneath the laughter. For the first time since the accident, Ryan didn't feel like the tragic centerpiece of a room. He felt like a person, a man, someone capable of bringing joy to others. Megan wasn't treating him like a fragile story. She was treating him like a partner. The music soared toward its final crescendo. Megan spun the wheelchair one last time and then stopped, dramatically. Noah raised both arms. "Ta-da!" The ballroom exploded into applause. Not polite applause, thunder. Ryan looked around in disbelief. Hundreds of people were standing, clapping, smiling. He swallowed hard. Emotion pressed against his chest like a rising tide. Megan bent slightly beside him, her voice soft now. "Hey." Ryan turned toward her. "You okay?" He nodded slowly. "I forgot what this felt like. What being alive." Her expression softened. "You never stopped being alive, Ryan. You just stopped letting yourself live." Those words settled between them quietly. Before he could respond, Noah tugged Megan's sleeve. "Mom." "Yeah, I'm hungry." Ryan laughed again. "Perfect timing." Megan sighed dramatically. "Agent Noah requires cake immediately." Ryan glanced toward the ballroom doors leading to the garden outside. "Actually, I could use some air." "Then air it is," Megan said. The three of them slipped quietly out of the ballroom. The sudden silence outside felt almost magical. String lights hung across the garden trees, glowing softly against the Chicago night sky. A gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers. Inside, the party still roared. Out here, the world slowed down. Megan pushed Ryan along the stone path while Noah chased fireflies across the lawn. For a while, none of them spoke. Then Ryan broke the silence. "Why did you do that?" Megan tilted her head. "Do what? Walk up to me?" She thought for a moment. "Honestly, yeah. You looked like someone who had forgotten how to laugh." Ryan exhaled slowly. "That obvious only to someone who's been there." Ryan turned his head toward her. She nodded lightly. 6 years ago, I was supposed to be the bride at a wedding." Ryan's eyebrows lifted slightly. "What happened?" "My fiancé realized he didn't want to be a father." She glanced toward Noah playing in the grass. "So he left." Ryan felt something tighten in his chest again. "But you stayed." "Someone had to." They both watched Noah chase another firefly. Ryan finally spoke. "You know, when I sat in that ballroom tonight, yeah, I thought my life was basically over." Megan shook her head. "No, it was just waiting for someone brave enough to drag you back into it." Ryan looked up at her again. The lights in the trees reflected in her eyes. Warm, fearless. For the first time in 2 years, the future didn't feel like an empty hallway. It felt like a door, one he might actually walk through. He smiled quietly. "Megan Parker, yes, you may have just caused a very dangerous chain reaction." She laughed. "Oh, really? Yeah." "What kind?" Ryan glanced toward Noah, then back at her. "The kind where I might start believing life still has surprises left." The next morning, Chicago woke up under a pale gray sky. Traffic roared along Michigan Avenue, coffee shops filled with commuters. The city moved with its usual restless energy. But inside a quiet penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, Ryan Holloway sat motionless in front of a glowing tablet screen. His assistant, Tyler Brooks, stood nearby, holding a phone. "You might want to brace yourself," Tyler said carefully. Ryan didn't answer at first. He already knew something was wrong. The screen in front of him was filled with headlines. Every single one carried the same photo. Ryan, laughing, on the dance floor. Megan beside him. Noah pushing the wheelchair behind them with his superhero napkin cape flying. But the captions beneath the photo twisted the moment into something ugly. "Billionaire in wheelchair pitied by single mom at luxury wedding as she after his money." The strange charity case of Ryan Holloway. Ryan's fingers tightened around the edge of the tablet. His jaw hardened. Tyler exhaled slowly. "The story spread overnight," he said. Every outlet picked it up. Ryan kept staring at the image. The moment that had felt like freedom the night before now looked like something else entirely. A spectacle, a joke, a pity story. Exactly what he feared. His voice dropped. "Did they drag Megan into it?" Tyler hesitated. "Some articles mention her." Ryan's chest tightened. "And the kid?" They blurred his face. "Mostly." Ryan closed his eyes. A familiar cold feeling crept back into his chest. The same one that had followed him since the accident. The world didn't allow moments like last night to remain simple. Everything had to become a headline, a story, a rumor, a weapon. Ryan placed the tablet down slowly. "I should never have let that happen." Tyler frowned. "Let what happen?" "Let them get close to me." Tyler's voice sharpened. "Ryan, that woman made you laugh for the first time in 2 years." Ryan wheeled toward the window. The Chicago skyline stretched endlessly below. That's exactly the problem. Meanwhile, across town, Megan Parker was tying her apron at the small cafe on Willow Creek Avenue. The cafe smelled like fresh espresso and cinnamon pastries. Noah sat at a small table coloring superheroes while sipping hot chocolate. The morning rush had already started. Megan moved behind the counter, greeting customers with her usual warm smile. But today, something felt different. People were whispering. 2 college students near the window kept glancing at their phones, then at her. One of them leaned closer to the other and whispered something. Then they both looked again. Megan frowned slightly. "Morning latte?" she asked one customer. The woman hesitated. "You're that woman from the wedding video, right?" Megan blinked. "What video?" The woman turned her phone around, and suddenly Megan saw it. The same photo. Ryan laughing. Noah pushing the wheelchair. Herself standing beside him. Thousands of comments underneath. Some kind, some cruel, some accusing. Megan felt her stomach drop. "Oh," she murmured quietly. Behind her, Noah looked up from his drawing. "Mom." Megan forced a smile. "It's nothing, sweetheart." But the cafe had already erupted in curiosity. "Did you really ask a billionaire to be your date? Are you two dating? Is he really worth billions?" Megan raised both hands gently. "Guys, it was just a dance. But the internet had already decided the story was bigger than that. Across the city, Ryan's phone buzzed. It was Megan. He stared at the screen, his chest tightened. Tyler watched him carefully. "You should answer." Ryan's thumb hovered over the screen, then he pressed decline. Tyler stared. Seriously, Ryan's voice was low. "They'll destroy her." "Ryan, they already are." He looked down again. "If I keep seeing her, they'll say she's chasing money." Tyler folded his arms. "So your solution is to hurt her instead?" Ryan didn't answer. That afternoon, Megan tried calling again. This time, Ryan picked up. "Hi," she said softly. Ryan's voice sounded distant. "Megan, you saw the headlines." "Yes." There was a pause. "Well, they're ridiculous," she said lightly. Ryan didn't laugh. "They're dangerous, Ryan. I've survived worse things than gossip. You don't understand." "Then explain." Ryan's voice turned colder. "We shouldn't see each other again." The words landed like a slap. Silence filled the phone. Finally, Megan said quietly, "Wow." Ryan closed his eyes. "This is better for you." "For me?" "Yes, so you get to decide what's better for me now." Ryan gripped the wheel of his chair. "You deserve a normal life." "I have a normal life." "No, you don't," he said sharply. "Not if you're connected to me." Megan's voice dropped. "Be honest, Ryan. What are you protecting me or protecting yourself?" Ryan didn't answer because the truth was brutal. He was terrified. Terrified that she might leave like everyone else. And if she left after he let himself care again, it would break him. That night, Megan showed up at his penthouse. Tyler opened the door and stepped aside silently. Ryan sat near the window again. When Megan walked in, her eyes were blazing. "You're really good at pushing people away," she said. Ryan didn't turn. "You shouldn't be here." "Too late." She walked closer. "Look at me." He didn't. "Ryan." Slowly he turned. Her eyes were bright with anger and hurt. "You think I came into your life because you're rich? No. You think I pity you? No. Then what exactly are you so afraid of?" Ryan's voice cracked slightly. "That you'll leave." The words hung in the air. Megan's expression softened instantly. "Oh, Ryan." He looked down. "Everyone leaves eventually." She stepped closer. "Not everyone." Ryan shook his head. "You say that now. And you're trying to prove yourself right by pushing me away." First, Ryan didn't respond because she had nailed it. Megan knelt beside his wheelchair. Her voice softened. "I didn't walk across that ballroom because I felt sorry for you." Ryan looked up slowly. "I walked across that room because you looked like someone who needed to remember he still mattered." Her hand rested lightly on his. "And you do." Ryan's throat tightened. The armor he had built over 2 years was cracking. And suddenly he realized something terrifying. He wanted her to stay, more than anything. Megan squeezed his hand gently. "So here's the question, Ryan Holloway. What are you brave enough to let someone stay?" Ryan looked into her eyes. And for the first time since the accident, hope didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a possibility. A dangerous, beautiful possibility. The kind that could change everything. For the first time in 2 years, Ryan Holloway allowed himself to hope. It was a fragile thing. Dangerous. But after that night in his penthouse, something between him and Megan Parker had shifted. The walls he had built around his life after the accident didn't vanish overnight, but they cracked just enough to let light in. And that light changed everything. 2 weeks later, Ryan rolled into the boardroom of Holloway Ridge Capital. The long glass table reflected the morning sun. 12 board members sat around it, their expressions tight, serious. A massive screen at the end of the room displayed numbers. Not good ones. Tyler stood beside the screen. "Our expansion partnership with Whitmore Strategic Partners is still unresolved," he said. "If the deal collapses, we lose our Boston entry in nearly $2 billion in projected growth." Silence filled the room. Then Walter Hayes, the oldest shareholder, leaned forward slowly. "Mr. Holloway," he said. Ryan met his gaze. "Yes." Hayes folded his hands. "Let's speak plainly." Ryan already knew what was coming. "Our partners are concerned about leadership stability." Another board member added carefully, "Whitmore is a traditional firm. They value presence, authority, physical command of the room." Ryan's fingers tightened on the armrest of his chair. Walter Hayes didn't sugarcoat it. "They're questioning whether a CEO who cannot stand can still lead." The room went quiet. Every word echoed. Ryan felt the familiar sting crawl under his skin again. Not anger, something worse, humiliation. But he didn't flinch. Instead, he spoke calmly. "I built this company before I ever stood in this chair." Hayes nodded slowly. "No one disputes that. But perception matters." Tyler cleared his throat. "There's still one opportunity," he said. "Daniel Whitmore and his wife are in Chicago tonight. They agreed to a private dinner before making their final decision. All eyes turned to Ryan. If this dinner failed, the board would have their excuse, and Ryan Holloway could lose the company he built. Ryan nodded once. Then we'll make sure it doesn't fail. That evening, Lakefront Grill House overlooked the dark waters of Lake Michigan. The restaurant was warm and elegant, filled with soft candlelight and quiet piano music. Ryan arrived first. His wheelchair rolled smoothly across the wooden floor toward the reserved table. Daniel Whitmore sat waiting, a sharp-eyed businessman in his 60s. Beside him was his wife, Evelyn Whitmore. Both watched Ryan carefully, judging, measuring. Moments later, Megan arrived. She wore a simple cream-colored dress, her hair tied loosely behind her neck. Not flashy, not formal. But when she stepped into the restaurant, the entire atmosphere shifted. Ryan noticed immediately. "You came," he said quietly. She smiled. "You asked." Whitmore stood politely. "Miss Parker." She shook his hand warmly. "Mr. Whitmore." "Mrs. Whitmore." Dinner began with polite conversation. Ryan presented the strategy behind the Boston expansion. Numbers, market projections, infrastructure plans. Whitmore listened, but his eyes kept drifting toward the wheelchair. Ryan could see it, so could Megan, and suddenly she did something completely unexpected. As the waiter set down the appetizers, Megan picked up her fork, then immediately dropped a piece of grilled salmon straight into her water glass. Splash! Everyone froze. Megan stared at the glass dramatically. "Well," she said, "that's embarrassing." Mrs. Whitmore covered her mouth as she laughed. Daniel Whitmore raised an eyebrow. Megan shrugged. "I've been trying to look sophisticated all evening." Ryan stared at her in disbelief. "You were doing fine, until the salmon drowned." Mrs. Whitmore laughed again. The tension at the table melted instantly. Megan turned toward Daniel Whitmore. "Mr. Whitmore, can I ask you something?" He nodded. "Of course. What convinced you to build Whitmore Strategic Partners from scratch?" The question surprised him. For the first time all evening, he leaned back and spoke not like a negotiator, but like a storyteller. Ryan watched Megan carefully. She wasn't interrupting. She wasn't performing. She was listening. Genuinely. By the time dessert arrived, the energy at the table had completely changed. Whitmore wasn't studying the wheelchair anymore. He was studying Ryan. Finally, he folded his hands. "Mr. Holloway," he said slowly, "you have a remarkable company." Ryan waited. Whitmore glanced at Megan. "And a remarkable partner." Ryan blinked slightly. Whitmore continued. "Leadership isn't measured by how a man walks into a room." He leaned forward. "It's measured by the people who stand beside him." Ryan felt his chest tighten. Whitmore extended his hand across the table. "We'll sign the partnership." Ryan shook his hand firmly. The deal that could save Holloway Ridge Capital was done. Later that night, as Ryan and Megan rolled along the Chicago lakefront sidewalk, the wind carried the sound of distant waves. Ryan finally spoke. "Do you realize what you just did tonight? What you saved my company?" Megan laughed. "I dropped a piece of fish in a glass." Ryan shook his head. "You changed the room." She looked out over the water. "Maybe you just needed someone to remind people who you already were." Ryan studied her quietly. Then he said something he hadn't admitted out loud before. "You're becoming very important to me." Megan didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at him seriously. "Ryan, this life of yours is complicated, I know. The headlines, the business, the pressure. I know." She took a breath. "So if this keeps going, we have to be honest with each other." Ryan nodded. "I agree." But neither of them noticed the car parked across the street. Inside it, a paparazzi photographer lowered his camera slowly. He had just captured something priceless. Ryan Holloway, smiling, looking at Megan like she was the center of his world. And by morning, those photos would be everywhere. The next morning, the story exploded. Chicago woke up to headlines that spread across news sites, blogs, and social media feeds faster than wildfire. Photos filled every screen. Ryan Holloway sitting in his wheelchair beside Lake Michigan. Megan Parker standing beside him, wind in her hair, laughing. And one particular photo that seemed to capture something deeper. Ryan looking at Megan with an expression no one had seen from him since before the accident. Hope, but the headlines didn't tell the story that way. Billionaire falls for single mom after viral wedding moment. Love story or strategy, who is Megan Parker? The internet went wild. Some people called it inspiring. Others called it suspicious. But millions of people were watching. And for the first time in years, Ryan Holloway was no longer just a tragic billionaire in a wheelchair. He was becoming something else. A story. Meanwhile, inside the small cafe on Willow Creek Avenue, Megan was trying to survive the morning rush. Or at least, pretending everything was normal. But nothing was normal anymore. Customers whispered. Phones pointed toward her. A teenage girl walked up to the counter and gasped. "Oh my God, you're her." Megan blinked. Her, the woman from the wedding video. Noah popped his head up from the corner table. "Told you, Mom," he said proudly. "You're famous now." Megan laughed nervously. "That's not the kind of fame we were looking for." At that exact moment, the cafe door opened. Every head turned. Ryan Holloway rolled inside. The room froze. For a split second, no one spoke, and then someone whispered loudly, "That's him." Ryan ignored the stares. He rolled straight toward Megan. She looked at him, half shocked, half amused. "You know," she said quietly, "this place sells coffee, not press conferences." Ryan smiled. "Good. I hate press conferences." Noah jumped out of his chair and ran over. "Ryan?" Ryan grinned. "Hey, partner, you came?" "Of course I came." Noah folded his arms proudly. "I knew it." Ryan glanced at Megan. "I needed to talk to you." She crossed her arms slightly. "You could have called. I tried that before. And you showed up at my penthouse anyway." She smiled faintly. "Fair point." Ryan looked around the cafe. All eyes were still on them. "Walk with me," he asked. 10 minutes later, they were sitting in a quiet park nearby. No cameras, no whispers, just the wind moving through the trees. Ryan looked unusually serious. "Megan, everything is about to get complicated." She nodded. "I figured the media isn't going to let this go. I know. People will question your motives. They already are." Ryan exhaled slowly. "You could walk away right now." Megan tilted her head. "Do you want me to?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said something honest. "I'm afraid you might." She looked at him for a longer moment. Then she said softly, "You know what I see when I look at you? What a man who survived losing everything." Ryan swallowed. "I didn't survive it very well. You're still here. That's not the same. It is if you keep moving forward." Ryan looked at the ground. "Why are you so sure about me?" Megan smiled slightly. "Because I know what it feels like when the world decides your story is over." Ryan met her eyes again. And I know that's usually the moment a better story begins." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Noah's voice broke the silence. "So, are you two getting married or something?" Ryan nearly choked. Megan burst out laughing. "Noah," what he said innocently, "that's what happens in stories." Ryan looked at the boy, then at Megan. Then something shifted in his expression. Not pressure, not fear, something much deeper, a decision. Weeks passed. The media storm slowly calmed, but something much more important was happening behind the scenes. Ryan started physical therapy again. Not because doctors promised miracles, but because Megan never let him give up. Some days he failed, some days he fell. One afternoon during a brutal therapy session, Ryan collapsed onto the floor in frustration. "I can't do this," he shouted. Dr. Caleb Foster moved towards him, but Megan reached him first. She knelt beside him, holding him tightly. "If you spend the rest of your life in that chair," she whispered. "I'm still here." Ryan froze. "But if you want to stand again," she continued, tears in her eyes, "then we'll fight for it together." Something inside Ryan cracked open. Not weakness, something stronger. Trust. Months later, the Grand Harbor Hotel hosted a massive charity gala for children's hospitals. Ryan Holloway stepped onto the stage. Hundreds of guests filled the ballroom. Cameras flashed. But tonight felt different. Megan and Noah sat in the front row. Ryan looked at them before speaking. "There was a time I believed my life ended the night of my accident," he told the audience. "But someone reminded me that life doesn't end when you fall." He paused. "It begins again when someone helps you stand." The crowd applauded, then Noah ran onto the stage unexpectedly. Ryan laughed. The boy grabbed the microphone. "Hi, everybody." The room erupted with laughter. "This is Ryan," Noah said proudly. "He's my hero." Ryan's throat tightened. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Then he looked at Megan. Right there in front of everyone, Ryan rolled closer to her table. "Megan Parker," he said softly. She looked up surprised. "The first time we met, you asked me to be your date," she smiled. "I remember." Ryan took a breath. "Well, I'd like to upgrade that offer." The entire room went silent. "Would you be my partner for life?" Gapes filled the ballroom. Megan's eyes filled with tears. She laughed through them. "Yes." The room exploded into applause. Noah jumped up and down. "I knew it," he shouted. Later that night, fireworks lit up the Chicago skyline. Ryan, Megan, and Noah stood together on the terrace. Ryan leaned slightly on a pair of crutches. Not walking perfectly yet, but standing. And sometimes, standing is enough. Ryan whispered to Megan, "You didn't just help me stand." She squeezed his hand. You helped me believe in love again. And under the lights of the city that once felt so cold, 3 lives began a brand new chapter. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think about this story? Did it touch your heart? Do you believe Megan and Ryan's love story proves that sometimes one small moment can change an entire life? If you enjoyed this story, comment the number 100 in the comments so we know you watched until the end. And tell us something interesting. Which country are you watching from right now? We love seeing viewers from all around the world. If this story moved you even a little, please share this video with someone who might need a reminder that hope can appear when we least expect it. Sometimes, all it takes is one brave person walking across the room.